From the Ben Pixel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Phone Booth Fighting, an absolutely free podcast coming to you covering the world of mixed martial arts and so far beyond. I am Richard Hunter.
I'm Frank Mayer.
And together we do this thing at least once a week for you, and you can get it free in iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel, Phone Booth Fighting on YouTube. Basically, wherever you get your podcast, Phone Booth Fighting will be there. We would appreciate you subscribing. We would appreciate you clicking on a 5-star review real quick for us, and we would most definitely appreciate you telling a friend and helping us grow this podcast. Frank, it's a Sunday morning up here at the Bent Pixel Studios. The 9 to 5ers are not around. That's when we like to show up because we get the place to ourselves. We got Canelo and Triple G2 on the screen here because we didn't get a chance to watch it last night. So this is us watching it together like Sunday morning leftovers from a boxing Saturday night. What's new with you? How's the weekend been?
Good so far. I mean, Bella had a bye week because the varsity team played De La Salle, and for whatever reason, I didn't quite get the details. They don't have a freshman team, or they just didn't play the freshman team. So another week of rest for Bella's neck, which makes me happy. The boys had some games that played over at Rancho and completely destroyed. They had to play with the Arborview, and it was pretty dominant performance for both my boys' teams, the 10U and the 12U of the Vegas Strong. So good games, but being out there in the heat, man, it was rough. There was not a cloud in the sky. We had the little umbrella and the things and just trying to stay out of the sun. But afterwards we went and killed some sushi, and by the time we got home, I passed out like about 5 o'clock and didn't wake up till 6 this morning.
Wow.
Got up to go to the bathroom a couple times, and just the heat saps you.
Man, I thought I was having a lazy Saturday because I didn't really get out of bed much either. I like Bella. I'm having my own neck issues from Wimp to Warrior. So,
how is it doing? Is it still flaring up again?
Yeah, it's good because this week is a full week off because next week, like not this coming week, but the week after that, apparently we start what they actually call fight camp.
I remember Jesse talking about the last time.
Yeah. So this is like a week of rest and recovery, which I pretty much need. I realized coming up the stairs here to the studio, I was getting along about like you do, usually getting up those steps. I was like, oh, this is a bad sign. I'm doing the Frank Mir walk here, the grunting and the groaning.
Forrest, one time he was busting my balls, but it was kind of funny. He said, he goes, hey, man, I used you in an interview. I'm like, what'd you say? He goes, well, they were asking me, what was my, decision to maybe retire. And he goes, and I said that when you start training like Frank Mir, he goes, I thought maybe that was time to call it. And so I was like, what's training like me like? He goes, I've seen you walk in the gym and you're like, okay, my left arm doesn't hurt, so I guess we can work that move today,
Yeah, for sure. So, I don't know. I've got a whole, little setup now over on my nightstand with, heating pads, CBD oil, icy hot patches, all the... Have you done...
Looks like my side of my bed.
Yeah. Have you done this CBD oil
I just started. I actually just started with a company, Black Belt CBD, here in town. And actually, next time I meet up with them on Thursday, I want you to meet up with them because it's actually when they were talking, there was two things that immediately hit my brain: my daughter and you. Yeah. Because they're a female-owned and ran company, and they feel like equalment, right. And so they're very, cutting edge. All the new movements of trying to, equality and whatnot. So obviously, I was like, oh, you guys, I should have brought Bella, but obviously she had school, and then I was thinking, they're very forward thinking, and I was like, this is Richard's cup of tea. Right here. Okay. So when was my photo shoot? Friday. So I started Friday night taking the CBD because they were there with the care packages, and I've always done that. I've always said that, hey, if I'm going to endorse.
Just move it closer to you.
If I'm going to endorse something, I really honestly want to take it. Right. I just feel stupid because that happened to me one time years ago. I was endorsing a supplement company, and the thing was, I was taking their supplements that pertain to me, like their protein powder. I think I was taking one of their glutamins, and they had like a powder that was like all your multivitamin pre-workout stuff. But then there was one of their products, a guy walked up to me and goes, hey, so do you take the product? I'm like, not really. He goes, aren't you sponsored? The guy was kind of busting my balls about it. I'm like, you know what? In all honesty, you're right, dude. Even though that's not a supplement maybe that of theirs that I want to take, I probably should have a running knowledge and experience with everything. Even though I can sit there and go, hey, I've taken it a few times. It works what it says or does this, but it's not in my regimen, you know?
It's I know in the morning now when I get up to go train, Jennifer's got this whole thing laid out on the kitchen counter of like there's pre-workout, there's a pre-workout shake which is different than the pre-workout concoction, and then there's a post-workout shake. Yeah. There's a bunch of shaker bottles and there's a whole bunch of containers laid out, and I can't remember recipes, so I've got everything stored in my phone. So the first thing I do is like I pull up all the recipes in the morning and I'm mixing all the shaker bottles. And
what about going old fashioned, just putting a postie by the...
Yeah, that could work, like with the recipe.
Yeah, just postie by the bottle. Okay, for this shake, AM.
Well, that'd probably be a good idea. This is how bad it is. This is how like old and decrepit I am. The recipe's actually on the back of the bottle, but the print's so small I can't read it.
Yeah, I have noticed your phone. You do that.
I have the big
text.
I have the big text.
I could read your phone from over here when you're texting.
Do you know it's just so bad. Like also now training too, because I mean my vision's always been like I've always worn contacts glasses really ever since elementary school. But the new thing is the having to do the readers and all that kind of stuff. So I get it coming and going. So normally I would wear contacts, but I can't spar with contacts in. Like a couple weeks ago, I got a little cut on my eye, and it sucked getting the contact lens out. I shouldn't have had the contacts in to begin with, and then I'm in the bathroom trying to fish the contact out around the cut, right? So I was like, okay, no more of this. This isn't a good idea. So now I'm going to the gym with glasses on, but when I take my glasses off, I can't see, like, you're blurry to me right now. Like,
I mean, don't they have I see basketball players wear it all the time, like the goggles.
Yeah, but I can't I couldn't do jiu-jitsu with those. I mean, if you think about it.
What do people do in combat sports that are with bad vision?
They don't. Like Roxanne Modafari, from what I understand, she has vision, her vision's worse than mine. She
does have some thick-looking glasses.
Yeah. And so it's just one of these things where, once we're, I guess, within combat distance, I can at least see I don't have to make out your facial features.
Have you ever rolled with her?
See where,
Should roll with her.
Yeah?
Yeah. Obviously I don't roll with her because, different weight classes. But I've watched her and stuff in the gym, and she's a pretty slick grappler, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does privates with Mike Pyle all the time, so during my classes, and I'll look over there and watch her. And just in the drills in class, there's times I looked over and, some of her takedowns and sweeps. I keep meaning to ask her. She has a judo background because she's a pretty slick grappler.
I'll have to do that. Well, speaking of syndicate, where both of us are training these days, Frank and myself here in Las Vegas, I went to Tough Enough Friday night because a number of syndicate fighters were on the card. I saw something really weird, and actually Roxanne factors inadvertently into it. So, great night of fights, by the way. All the syndicate guys acquitted themselves well. A couple of wins, a couple of losses.
How did Adam do?
Adam. Did he lose? You know what? I'm still kind of learning everybody's names. Yeah, I don't want to say anything because I might be wrong on that outcome. I thought that might have been.
How
one
did
of the
Jordan
losses.
Levitt do?
Okay, so which card is that? That's up at the top. He won.
Yeah, he's like savantly good.
Yeah.
Have you ever moved with him?
I none of these guys I really know personally.
He does things on his feet and on the ground that I would tell you not to do. But like he consciously does them, and he just has a mixture of a crazy brain for just fighting, really just doesn't follow the mold on a lot of movements, and just a really good athlete.
Yeah.
And then super calm, phenomenal cardio. Like this guy is eventually going to do great unless something happens, like he decides to get a regular job, or has a baby, or something, he gets a major injury, or something derails him.
All things I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah. He'll be something special.
Okay, cool. The guy.
This guy, Adam.
Yeah,
I can't pronounce Adam's last name.
I'm Aqua Viva. Is it Aquaviva? I'm drawing it sounds like a bottle of water, right?
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on exactly what played out in his fight, so I don't want to say anything in case I'm not correct on that. But the next fight, David Jordan, that guy scored a incredible KO, and the really weird thing was he had like a Cat Williams lookalike in the crowd, like this guy that had like a walking stick and a handkerchief he was waving and a giant $ medallion that the guy was dancing. It basically brought his own hype guy, and the guy was going nuts when he won. So here's my weird thing that happened. All right, so great. Now, by the way, this was tough. If you've ever heard of or have not heard of this Tough Enough promotion, if you're not from this area, Tough Enough has been around for many years. It's always up to this point been an amateur fight organization, but it's been an amateur organization that has had the likes of Ronda Rousey fight in it before she turned pro, number of others that you have heard of. Well, Friday night at the Orleans in their ballroom here was their first ever pro fight card. So the co-main event was Deanna Bennett, who was on UFC's Ultimate Fighter. She fought Kelly Cobal. That was a good fight. Deanna Bennett won a decision. This gets us all the way, Frank, to the main event, which is going to feature Syndicate MMA's own JD Domingo. That's another name I don't know exactly. It's a Cajun name. Taking on Cody McKenzie. Now, do you remember Cody McKenzie?
The guillotine killer, right?
Yes. So Cody McKenzie was on Ultimate Fighter, had a handful of fights in the UFC, and then was cut from the organization back in 2013. The deal with Cody McKenzie was he was from the greater Northwest area, originally Alaska, and then I think was training in Washington State. Yeah, he had the McKenzie teen, which was a variation on a guillotine that he was subbing a lot of people with. Definitely kind of a Northwest Washington State hippie vibe he gave off, kind of lengthy-haired, bearded fellow, and definitely marching to the beat of his own drummer. So this gets us to 2013. I'm giving you the backstory on it because I'm going to tell you what happened with this main event at Tough Enough. So this gets us to 2013. I happened to be at this fight. It was in Sacramento. It was his last fight ever in the UFC. He was fighting Sam Stout. And
I was always a fan of Sam Stout.
Yeah.
I liked his stuff.
Yeah.
Canadian, right?
Yep.
Great striker.
He was the Hands of Stone. Yeah.
Good movement.
Yeah. So Cody McKenzie comes in the cage, and he's wearing white trunks with a black Nike swoosh on them. That's all that's on there. Now, this was pre-Reebok, okay? So you're looking at this going, has this mid-card guy landed a Nike endorsement? Like, wow, Well, no, he forgot to bring his fight shorts to the fight. So what happened was his coaches had to go across the freeway to where there was a mall and go to like a Big Five Sporting Goods or something and buy him a pair of basketball shorts. So he was wearing Nike basketball shorts. Now, the hilarity does not stop there because in the middle of the fight, he's got like top control and, butt's kind of sticking up in the air. Herb Dean's reffing, and Herb sort of looks down. You see him look down at Cody, and he reaches down, and they had left the price tag on the shorts. Herb sees the price tag and just rips it off of the shorts doesn't have to stop the fight or whatever, just keeps going. He just rips the price tag off so that nobody gets a cut or a scratch from the price tag left on the shorts. And that was the end of Cody McKenzie in the UFC. He was cut after that. And but that's the backstory.
That blows my mind because, and you've seen my car.
Yeah.
I clean it once every maybe 2 months. Like in fact, I almost took a picture of it. I cleaned out the car this weekend and took out all my rash guards and shorts because I just grabbed clean ones and I was running out. So I probably had about 40 T-shirts and rash guards and about 10 different pairs of shorts, gym equipment, water bottles, it filled up the red couch in my house.
Yeah.
I don't know how everything was fitting in the car because my car's not that big. So that's the background of fans at home that know that I'm not the most meticulous of human beings, obviously. And the night before and the day of a fight, I mean, when I fly, I probably look at my cup and my mouthpiece in my shorts 30 fucking times. Like, I mean, you constantly are just like, there's certain things that you have to fight. And because it's of utmost importance to have, I don't know how you're not neurotic about checking it. Almost every fighter I know does that. We're constantly opening up your bag. Okay, they're my shorts. There they still are. They're there. They haven't got up and walked anywhere, but fucking you just want to make sure they're still there, you know?
I mean, I hate to be I told you so, but 2 words for Cody McKenzie in that scenario: backpack specialist.
There you go.
I mean, All right, so this gets us to Friday night. Like I said, great night of fights. First ever pro card that Tough Enough has put on. So, you want to deliver solid results. You're making the step up from an amateur promotion to a pro promotion. Sold out, but if it wasn't sold out, it must have been damn near sold out. I mean, pretty much every seat in the house was filled. And like I said, great night of fights. Syndicate guys all delivered great. So this gets us to the main event. With no warning, the ring announcer gets in the cage and goes, "Tonight's main event, due to unforeseen circumstances, has been canceled." And I thought about 5 minutes prior to that, during the co-main event, I thought I had seen Cody McKenzie walk through the crowd. I saw his back, but I thought, damn, that dude looks like Cody McKenzie. But then I thought, well, it can't be, because his hands weren't wrapped. He was just walking toward the front door and clearly leaving. I still can't tell you for sure that was him, but now I believe it probably was. And the ring announcer just gets in and it's like, yep, due to unforeseen circumstances, main event is canceled. The funny part is, all in one sentence, here's what he says: "Due to unforeseen circumstances, the main event has been canceled. Now let's bring into the cage UFC flyweight contender Roxanne Modafferi." And because you know why? Because nobody can be mad at Roxanne. It was like, all right, main event's canceled. Here's a puppy. It was like, and then she did
Any rumors on why? Did you figure it out?
The rumor I heard was that, and this is just a rumor, that he did not want to take a urine test prior to the fight. You're pretty much always going to do that, aren't
if
you?
you're main event at any show that I know of, and you're a professional, which he is obviously a professional, fighting on a pro-am card. Nevada Athletic Commission sanctioned it. I've never fought on a Nevada card and been in the main or co-main event and not taken a drug test.
Prior,
now,
not after prior. I mean, after as well.
But usually, actually, always before, and then sometimes just the winter after, or sometimes it is after. That one's hit and miss. But absolutely, you take a drug test before the fight, and then it's random for the rest of the card. So usually they'll drug test 4 other people, so 2 other of the fights, and you don't know who those are until you check in backstage, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, checking in, or you're in room such and such, and by the way, here's your commissioner who's going to follow you around, Chris, until you take in." And usually Chris is there with his little paper lunch bag, and that means that you're peeing in a cup before and then usually you just get it done right then and there. All right, let's get this over with so I can focus on the fight.
Yeah, it was weird. And maybe we'll hear on the syndicate side, because he was going to fight a syndicate guy. Maybe we'll hear later on what really happened with that. But that was a rumor I heard. But boy, that was the anticlimactic ending to the whole thing. That was going to be a 185-pound fight as well. So Cody McKenzie fighting a little bit heavier than he was back in the days of UFC. But it was like, well, I guess it's time to go, and everybody got up and left.
That is the route that some guys, when you know that you're not going to pass a drug test.
Yeah.
I guess if you're trying, which that's weird if you're on the main event. There is no
right.
There is no, let me take a gamble, and if I don't get tested, I'm cool. If I do get tested, I'll deny the test, which that gamble I've seen guys, and I'm aware of, that you can do, because then you can just sit there and go, well, if I get away with it, I'm cool. But if I am the one who's randomly selected, then it's better to go ahead and deny taking the drug test and always leave it up to your imagination and never really, it's one of those, it kind of along the lines of like, it's better to keep your mouth shut than to, and everybody think you're an idiot, than open your mouth and remove all doubt. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's one of those things where, and I've seen some other fighters do that where they know they're going to fail, that they're going to piss hot. And so it's better just to, I'm not doing it,
Yeah. Now, how would that have worked with his money? Because
he gets zero money.
Okay. So if he had failed, then there would
would have got his show money.
Yeah.
And if he had won the fight, he would obviously, you have your win bonus. But then if you fail the drug test, you lose your win bonus.
Yeah.
Plus, you get fined by the athletic commission a certain percentage of your purse.
Yeah.
But there's still an incentive to fail a drug test because you still get some money, a majority of your money, really. Whereas if you decide not to piss at all, you got zero. So I mean, I guess
yeah, so you're not even getting anything. Well, don't they treat it like? Don't they treat
you'll get the same fine as somebody who failed the drug test?
I was going to say, don't they treat a denied test that way?
Yeah. The only thing is the court of public opinion. If you come up with some other bullshit, excuse, say that, well, I'm on anxiety medication and it would have failed the drug test. I didn't want to deal with it, and then maybe play stupid that you didn't know that you're basically going to get the same fucking fine, maybe pull that one, I don't know, personally, just,
At this point, though, because he's 30 years old, I think, and he's on a hell of a losing streak. It's like 7 of his last 8 he's dropped or something like that. It's a lot since he's been out of the
Outside
UFC.
the UFC?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like, you're 1 or 2 fights away from getting back into a big organization. It seems like at that point, money would be more important. Now, I wonder with him.
Well, does he run a gym?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you got to think about your money outside of fighting.
Yeah.
Your reputation and, is also something that can help you as far as financial gains. And if you run a gym, and maybe you have a big youth program that might, you start weighing out the, what I make tonight compared to what I lose as far as, if, and depends on what he's on. What if all of a sudden, because you got to realize too, he might not have been on steroids. Honestly, he might not, that might not be what he's worried about. But because at that point, the day of, it's in competition. So now they're going to test you for recreational drugs. So he might have had recreational drugs in his system and fucked up, now, he did a line of coke or, he popped some pills and now he feels like that's going to hurt his reputation as a gym owner, head of a team, more so than even a PED. Because, at least the PEDs, he can sit there and go, well, I'm healthy, I'm just driving, and I tried taking a shortcut or I'm, adding to my training to win fights or I had an injury or whatever, you can articulate. But being a professional fighter and saying, well, 2 nights before the fight, I decided to party and I have recreational drugs in my system. Just about everybody's going to look down on that. Even if you party otherwise, even if it's, hey, you don't have a fight scheduled and you're 3 months away, 4 months away, and someone takes a picture of you, fucking lit out of your brain. I think the average person goes, well, he's not in camp and that's his personal life and, be more discreet next time there, buddy. But, not everybody is straight edge as you are. Whereas I think most people would look down on you if all of a sudden it's 3 days before a fight, 2 days before a fight, because that's how long, certain amphetamines get out of your system pretty quickly. Even a pain pill and stuff, 24, 48 hours, it's out of your system. You're partying pretty much up to the wire. And I think that's what that reputation-wise would hurt people.
Yeah, I was, and again, I don't know him. I don't know anything about him personally or his background or anything like that. But just if I were going to make assumptions or speculate, maybe just from the area of the country that he's from and the number of times that he's been photographed with the Diaz brothers, I would assume this might be a pot-related thing. Which because I bring that up because that begs this question: anymore. I know that's a banned substance, But doesn't it just seem like whenever somebody tests positive for marijuana that all we do is sit around and talk about how stupid that is?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it does. You know, when you talk about like court of public opinion, it does seem like that is one of those things that has now it's basically followed suit to the way that the country as a whole treats it. Which, you know, for the longest time, I mean, now it's being legalized all over the place. But, you know, for the longest time when it wasn't legal, how many years did we all sit around and go, oh, gosh, when are we going to stop this? This is so stupid, right? So it seems like now in MMA, we basically still kind of do the same thing. I don't really know even how much that hurts you, you know, at that, if it's that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, on the books, it seems like the commissions are still prosecuting, you know, with how the rules are.
Yeah.
But as far as you're right, as far as court of public opinion, I don't think it really hurts you at all. I think, you know, I think the average person now, I mean, obviously that's where the trend is, becoming legalized in more and more states right now. I think most people don't really care if you smoke. I mean, as long as you're doing it responsibly. I mean, there are the extreme cases where it's like, well, I mean, you still can't get high and drive a car. Like, just because it's weed doesn't make it any different than alcohol. You still can't be impaired behind a wheel of a vehicle or on a bike or whatever. But as far as looking down on you, like, oh, you're a subclass citizen because you smoke weed. No, I don't think anybody cares anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what, and it's just the fact that he's got that reputation is just kind of a quirky character that, you know, is a little offbeat. It's kind of hard to know, I guess. So I checked his social media. I was looking to see if there were any statements as far as what happened. I guess we'll probably find out maybe just from around the gym with his opponent probably got
unless
the
you're
word.
like Rich Franklin was back when he was fighting. You know, that might hurt his reputation when he was at his peak. You know, school teacher, All-American guy, you know. Some of his fan base might be against it, but I think the average fan of MMA could care less whether their favorite fighter is smoking weed or not on his off time.
So we're watching the second installment of Canelo and Triple G, round 7 now. You saw the first fight, right, that these two had?
Yeah.
It was a great fight. This was looking like a great fight too. Disputed close decision, and now there's reason for a rubber match that we'll probably get. Sometimes it's like you just get the right two guys matched up, and they always deliver. Yeah. You know, we've seen that a number of times in MMA.
Well, I mean, they're both landing a lot of strikes, but it just really seems like just from every time I look over there, it looks to me, and I'm not watching the full fight, you know, because we're talking here. It looks like Canelo really is controlling it more aggressive, more going after it. Where it seems like Triple G is more responding to what Canelo is doing.
Might be lessons learned from their first fight. Triple G's distracting me with the paragraph tattoo that's on his back shoulder blade. Are you done getting tattoos?
I got to finish the back one eventually.
But no more. You don't have the desire for any.
You know, the chest tattoo looks pretty cool. I mean, Connor pulled it off pretty well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested. You know,
do you want to have some roaring beast sticking up out of your out of your
pretty
collar?
Badass, to be honest with you. I mean, I've always talked about finishing my sleeves down, and then actually I'm very much. There's one of the parents at Bella's school of football players. He owns a tattoo shop, and he does he's actually a certified. Is it a chief of Samoa? So he has his paperwork, and he's an official or the tattoo artist of the chief.
So like
that's his certified job. So I mean that's some pretty cool heritage there. Authentic, tribal tattoo. Do something on the thigh. I thought,
when they
as long as I'm not, impeding on anybody's, culture, but just to show appreciation for.
When they do that, like Mark Hunt has all that, which we'll talk about here in a second because he fought Alexei Oleinik yesterday. When they do that pattern, is that like? To draw an analogy, is that like where you could look at like a Scottish family plaid and tell what plaid it is?
I believe so, to a point. He was explaining it to me, and maybe I can have him come on the show.
That'd be interesting.
Because, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is actually, pertains to you. Maybe, I think there might be, and don't quote me on this one, some family history or lineage attached to it. But a lot of it is that the tattoo artist gets to know you talks to you, hangs out with you, and then through that discussion of getting to know who you are, tailors the tattoo to match your personality. So it's kind of a representation of you. Like maybe like if he was doing you, it'd be like you with a spear over a turnip. You know what I mean?
Like, see, that's a good question, because I wonder if like, you know, somebody who can interpret that language sees somebody's tattoo years later and like, yeah, what does it say? He's like, yeah, it says not a lot going on upstairs. You know, just kind of, just kind of an empty vessel.
I've always told you that joke. I remember when I was probably 23. When I got the kanji tattoos on the back of my arms and Japanese phrases, and this was kind of before we had iPhones, obviously. I thought I had it down right, you know, and so I go to the tattoo shop, they put it on, and the symbol for samurai I had in the book, so I knew I had that one down. But then I'm eating sushi over on Spring Mountain and Rainbow, and one of the chef's name was Yoshi, and he was straight from Japan. His English was, you know, a little spotty at best. And so that was like my moment of truth real quick. I was like, hey, what does this say? You know, and he looked at it and he gave his interpretation, which was, you know, obviously not exactly, you know, it was like, you know, kingdom, you know, king without a crown, you know, and, you know, and so I was like, oh, thank God. You know what I mean? Like, it meant that I didn't get one, like, you know, retarded American who doesn't, you know.
Yeah. The thing about the paragraph is this. And this is doubly troubling with Canelo Alvarez, because it's on his back shoulder blade. All right, so here's the thing where you see people that'll have like a whole bunch of, like I said, a paragraph, you know, somewhere tattooed on them. One, do you set yourself up for having to constantly explain something? Like, I've never had to wear a cast, like I've never broken an arm or something like that, but to me, what would suck the worst about it is having to tell the story 100 times. And that's why whenever I see somebody wearing a cast, unless it's like you know, unless it's like a really close friend, I'm just seeing it for the first time and I really do care what happened, I'm not just going to randomly, what happened to your arm? You know, because then you're going to have to tell me all about your skiing accident for the 100th time. So I wonder if having that kind of lengthy text is ever you kind of set yourself up for that. And then secondly, in his case, it's on his back or on his back shoulder blade. So that's only for people to read who are following along closely behind you, I guess, when you don't have a shirt on, right?
Yeah. But you know what? It's actually, from what I understand of marketing, a lot of people prefer to put things on their back for that reason, that if you're marketing and I put something on your chest, a lot of people feel uncomfortable reading people's T-shirts.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because you have to see that I'm staring at you, right? And there's just a certain social stigma that people, you know, feel uncomfortable breaking. That unless we're buddies, and you know, you and I look, oh, hey man, what shirt are you wearing right there? You know. But if you're just walking past me and I don't know you, whereas if I see someone with something on the back of their shirt, I'm more inclined maybe to stare at it. So maybe his message, he wants people really to look at. So if he's at the gym shirtless, I guess, or at the beach.
Yeah. Although, you know, if I'm your coach.
Or if he's that guy that walks around without a fucking T-shirt, you know.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you're at the gym and I'm your coach and somebody's able to read that entire paragraph, I'm going to suggest to you that you need to be showing more movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's the test.
Well, he could be on the machine at the gym. I mean, different gyms.
Yeah.
Maybe he's out there on the lat pull down, you know.
That might be it. I've been busy in my free time trying to think of ways that to help Jessica Rose Clark make her tattoos tax deductible, because she gets so many. So my first suggestion for her the other day, we were training and she was using an analogy to explain how to throw kicks like a tether ball. Like how the ball, you know, goes around the pole and wraps around. And she was basically saying how you want your body to be the pole and you want your leg to kind of be like that ball, you know, not stiff, kind of loose, kind of flexible when you throw the kick and it comes back. And I said to her, oh, well, then you should get a tattoo of a tether ball on a pole, and then when you're coaching, you just point to it to draw your analogy, and that makes it tax deductible. The other one I thought of was this. If you got a tattoo of a face, like in a place that would bruise if you weren't doing a technique right, like on a certain part of your leg, and that face became discolored, then it's like a gauge It's like a way of knowing if you're throwing a technique right.
Maybe I could find him real quick, but I remember when they found one of the, this is years ago, so 20 years ago, I remember when one of the guys they found like in the Alps, he was like, thousands of years old.
Oh, yeah, frozen,
a hunter. And one of the things that I was watching, it was probably like a Time magazine, and they were doing a breakdown of him.
Yeah.
What weapons he had on him, what clothing he was wearing. He had tattoos. But get this, the tattoos were like lines and spots on his leg or his lower back that they figured out related to what were common pressure points for pain relief for certain injuries. It's like, so he must have had a bad back. And so for him to remember his shaman or probably whoever of his tribe tattooed, okay, when you hurt, press here.
Oh,
that's so kind of a little bit to what you're saying, but yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? You can actually use tattoos for
See there, and if you were a pro fighter, you could make that tax deductible. Pretty sure. So speaking of Jessica Rose Clark, Jessie Jess, she was on our last episode. If you missed it, go grab it. It's on our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel. It's on all of the podcasting applications. And you really don't ever want to miss an episode she's on because she's an engaging personality. But beyond that, she always says something that gets people talking and sometimes causes great debate. And as it turns out, Frank, our last episode was no exception. So you were here. She was sitting right over there by you. Remember the part where we were talking about Jessica Andrade's performance the week before, and she said she made reference to the fact that Jessica had cut all of her hair off and now looked like a Brazilian boy. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, that's when I started referring to that Andrade's facial structure is actually very good looking. She just, obviously being a brawler and a fighter, and doesn't take an interest in that area. But if she wanted to model, she actually has very good bone structure.
Full context. Yeah, she has like the model-esque facial features.
Yeah, when she was sitting on her couch, I remember looking over at her. I'm like, wow, she is like one of those girls. You just look at her and go, her cheekbones, it's like, I wonder if anybody ever tried to talk her out of fighting and be like, you're actually a really pretty girl.
One of those people where it's like they really can't make themselves not pretty.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like to varying degrees, but you can't go so far as to make yourself unattractive. What a curse.
And Jessica does have a girlfriend though, right?
Andrade, she's married, actually, I believe, to a woman. Yeah.
That's why I feel comfortable talking about her, because obviously she has no interest in me.
Well, you and I,
there's no connection there. If there's a connection, we're going to talk about, how beautiful we think another girl is.
Well, you and I escaped the wrath of the internet in that conversation, but Jessie Jess did not. So the interview or the internet lights up. There were postings on the underground like Jessica Rose Clark says Jessica Andrade looks like a dude. And then there's a link to our podcast, and everybody argues back and forth. Did Jessie shame Jessica Andrade? Does she owe Jessica Andrade an apology? And then Jessie responds on the internet, and there's a whole back and forth to it. And sometimes I get these things, Frank, and then sometimes I don't. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, did it occur to you that anything seemed offensive?
No, not at all. I didn't really take it as an insult. It was just an observation that with her shaved head, that she looked, in her opinion,
not
like
shaved head, but cut real close.
Cut real close, yeah. I don't know. I guess I didn't. Nothing when she said that struck me as an insult. It was just like, oh, that's your opinion. It wasn't insulting. And then my opinion is that, but if you ever look at her face structure, like she's really pretty, you know what I mean? Like I remember, I think Mrs. Mayer was there and she was talking about, she's a makeup artist's dream because the way her facial structure is, you could really you have a heyday with her, it would be easy to make even, more beautiful, and so.
Well, and also just rewinding that segment a few minutes, I think part of what was included in that was my story about when Angela Hill made fun of my look on the internet because I was asking a question at a press conference, at a UFC press conference, and she took like a screen grab of me and put it on her Twitter. And it was like somehow this guy got into the UFC. Somehow the UFC credentialed this guy or something like that. And of course, we ended up having her on, Angela Hill, on the podcast and teasing her about that. I mean, it was like,
I don't know. Maybe I'm really saying someone looks like a little boy that has their hair cut short. You know what I mean? Like, well, like for example, when I was at the hospital the other day with Bella when she hurt her neck, it was probably 3 or 4 nurses, and the doctor kept referring to her as a boy. You know what I mean? Even though Bella, because Bella, at that point we had her hair, her hair just looked like it was long. She's all, she's wearing a football uniform. I understood that looking at Bella's shoulders and her arms and her hunched over holding onto her neck and you can't see her face.
And wearing a football uniform.
Right. I got it. I didn't take it as an insult. She did look like a boy in that particular. She's not built very slight. I mean, she's almost 160 pounds. You know what I mean? She's got shoulders and a back. She lifts. She's high into wrestling and jiu-jitsu, so she has a build that that is very active. I didn't get mad at anybody, until one point and I didn't even correct anybody. It didn't matter. It's like you're asking us a question if she's comfortable or not, whether you refer to her a boy or a girl. All I care about, you're going to give me something to put her legs up, cool. A neck brace, great. You know what I mean? Like at that moment, her identity did not matter. Who gave a shit? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And then eventually when the doctor came and looked at it, he goes, Isabel, oh my God. And then she looked at her face. She goes, oh, wow. Okay. I could see the recognition. Oh, and then I kept making a joke to Bella about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you notice? I'm like, do you kind of get off on that? The people, when they think that you're a boy at first, you know what I mean? She goes, a little bit,
Yeah. I was thinking about that Angela Hill thing because, look.
But Angela Hill's comment was a dig at you. It was a specific dig because she's saying somebody that looks like you. How did they get into the press conference? So that's a dig.
Sure.
Whereas if like I make comments about your appearance, I make jokes. Oh, you look like an '80s rocker. You know what I mean? Or like I made a joke earlier in the show about you look hunting a turnip. It was a joke of being a vegan. But I can see that it's not insulting, and so there's those jokes, and then there's also too just observations. If a guy looks kind of androgynous, I can sit there and go, wow, guy's got an androgynous look to him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it as an insult. I'm just pointing out a physical fact that, wow, and if you're a girl with short hair and you're muscular, you are going to start really treading the line of maybe looking kind of like a small male.
Yeah, and we were also talking about it in the context of, like it or not, UFC mainstream marketability of people like Paige Van Zandt, people who have like those kind of traditional.
That's right. She was referring to it that the reason why maybe they're not getting behind her as much as like Shevchenko is that Shevchenko has a much more classical girl pretty look. Even though Shevchenko, she cut her hair, she's also very muscular too. She has wide shoulders, big arms, big quads. She's also built like a powerhouse athlete, but she has long blonde hair. So she's more marketable towards mainstream America. I get that, you know what I mean? And pointing that out, I don't think it's an insult. It's just, it is what it is. It's like, hey, if you got tattoos on your face, you're going to be harder to hire. You're probably not going to.
Speaking of Jesse, who has tattoos on her face.
So like if Jesse's, I'll be like, oh, she's probably going to have to stay in the world of martial arts or something like that, because getting a job at the front of a bank might not be easy when you have tattoos on your face. You go in for a job interview and you want to be a bank teller and they're looking at you and, you're completely inked up and on your face too, you can't cover it up. I'm saying your chance of getting hired just dropped some. It does not enhance your chances. I'm not insulting tattoos. I'm just pointing out an observation that, like, I'm sure most employers are not hiring people to work the front to represent their company in a professional setting with ink on their face. Not against it. I love tattoos. Many myself.
I always entertain anybody's theory. I mean, if it's, hey, I think somebody owes somebody else an apology, I'm not just going to out of hand be like, oh, quit being so sensitive. Like, let me think it through. Okay, what's your case here? But
I do not feel like. I think people are being a little sensitive on the internet.
Because here's back to I mentioned that thing with Angela Hill, because here's the thing. When I saw that on the internet, first of all, there's a bunch of people going, he's been credentialed by the UFC for 10 years. He hosts a podcast for me. She didn't know any of that, right? So there's one of two ways we can go. I can either talk about how indignant I am and I've been shamed and she owes me an apology and how dare she be so insensitive, or we can invite her on the podcast, which is what we did, messed with her a little bit.
Yeah.
I treated her a little bit like, I mean, it was all in good fun. It was all good natured, but to be honest, a little bit of the heckler treatment, like if it had been at a comedy set, you know, you give it back a little bit. Because I think at one point I did say, didn't I see you at the weigh-ins with a 2-foot afro the last time I saw you fight? Like, are you, you know, and now we're friends. So it's kind of like, I mean, is that really, maybe I look at it from a comedian standpoint, but you know what would absolutely bomb on stage? If somebody heckled me and I was like, you have shamed me. You just stop the show. You know, you owe me an apology in front of all these people. No, you just fuck with them back a little bit if you feel fucked with to begin with. I don't know. It just, and I do think there's situations where things like that and apologies are warranted, but I don't know. That seemed like a bit of a stretch to me.
I agree with you. I didn't feel, even when she said, I mean, there's times where we're here and people have said things where I'm like, ooh, that might not have been good for you. You know,
usually it's you.
Yeah,
usually you say it and then you think to yourself, ooh,
no,
that
actually,
might not have been good.
It's usually afterwards you tell me, like, hey, you know when we were talking about this? I'm like, yeah. You're like, we're going to edit that out. I'm like, oh. In fact, actually, I think the few times I do, if I realize, I'm like, you're probably going to edit this shit out. But let me tell you what I really think.
That's happened rarely, by the way. For the most part, everything makes the air. I can only think of a couple of times where it was questionable as to where statute of limitations had run out, that we had to clip anything out. But just in case you're wondering, if you're a regular listener to us, you pretty much get everything that comes out of our mouths. But yeah, I told Jesse after that, I said, you know, every time you come on, somehow, some way, you make some news. I said, we may have to install a siren in the studio, and then whenever she's on, we have the siren go off whenever she says what we think is going to be the thing that makes some headlines. Like we kind of predict it. Just like a woo, woo, woo goes off. All right, Canelo and Triple G are about wrapped up here. 12th round's about to finish. Man, these guys were throwing from start to finish. That's one thing I can tell, even from just kind of casually watching a fight. There didn't seem to be a lot of lulls in action in this one. And also didn't seem to be one of those things. You know what boxing suffers from a lot of times is if the writing is on the wall early. And this happens in all kinds of fights. I mean, we see it happen in MMA. If the writing is on the wall early in terms of more or less who's going to lose, you know, style versus style, you put them together and you realize within one round, oh, this one, you know, fighter A is going to have no answer for fighter B's fill in the blank, wrestling, you know, takedowns, whatever it is. Then a lot of times rounds 2 and 3 are going to go the same way. Well, in MMA, you've only got 2 more rounds. In boxing, you get 11 a lot of times. So it's kind of a slower burn. You want to take a look at Mark Hunt and Alexei Oleinik. That fight lasted only 1 round, less than 1 round. Let me cue that up. Tell everybody about the Amazon banner, Frank, while I'm doing this. We, by the way, do not have Porno Mikey again today. He actually was not shooting double anal not on a Sunday morning, not on the Lord's Day. That would be distasteful. But he actually worked the Canelo Triple G fight last night.
Oh, yeah.
In some sort of support capacity. And then he had a quick turnaround to some other project today. So I think he's sleeping right now. But tell everybody about the Amazon banner while I'm queuing this up. Where is it, by the way? It's on the front of phoneboothfighting.com.
Yeah, you could do what I do. I just have it to where Phone Booth Fighting is saved as one of my icons on my iPhone, and I click on Phone Booth Fighting. Once I'm there, I scroll down just to where it says the Amazon banner, and by clicking on the Amazon banner, it drives me right over to the Amazon website. At that point, anything I purchase for any of my wants and needs, a small percentage at no extra cost to you, comes back to here at the show to help us out.
That's it. And it's a great way to support the show. It's a great way to tell your friends to support the show. You can also buy official show merchandise at phoneboothfighting.com as well.
Yeah, and then on another side note, a little bit more of a sobering thing. My uncle passed away here on Thursday finally from his battle with colon cancer, and I think if you follow my social media, I posted a little thing up. If anybody wants to help out his son and his wife and my other uncle with the funeral costs and whatnot, they started a GoFundMe account. But the reason I really want to bring it up is the Miguel. I remember growing up, he's actually my dad's cousin, right?
Okay.
So it was Miguel, Roberto, Robert, and then Larry, Lázaro, and my dad, Francisco, right? The four of them, and they're cousins by their mothers, right? Both their mothers are sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So when my father came over from Cuba, they all came over as a family. His mother, not to get into it, something happened to her back in Cuba from being on the list. Some soldiers got a hold of her, and she never made it. And so the father, he worked all the time. So basically, my dad and his brother were raised by Miguel's and Robert's parents, his aunt and uncle. So they were more brothers than, so that's why growing up I always called him my uncle.
Right.
Even though they're technically first cousins, they're brothers, you know what I mean? And Miguel was always into weightlifting, he liked sports, but my dad was much more into martial arts and weight training. And Miguel, out of all four of them, really picked up the weight training. He was the guy that walked around with a weight belt all the time, fanny pack, in fact, I take Animal Pack as my multivitamins. And I got the idea from him because I remember as a kid seeing Miguel, who had, at the time I thought it was unbelievable to have 18-inch arms, 18-inch guns, it was only, 5'10", just real muscular, guy who just, spent all day in the gym, and so when I saw him passing away here this last week when I came back, he weighed less than 100 pounds. He was a guy that used to weigh 240. His last weigh-in, he was under 100 pounds. Couldn't speak. He was just, I didn't even recognize him, you know what I mean? And the reason, again, not for anybody, it's a sad story. Yeah, but there's a lesson to be learned here. Colon cancer, he had a hard time when he finally went to the doctor. He was having issues where he couldn't go to the bathroom except for with a struggle for 4 or 5 months. So by the time he finally, I hate doctors. I'm not going to go to a doctor. I'm a man. By the time he finally went to the doctor and they found out, it was already pretty much too late. And this was 2 years ago. He had stage 4 cancer. He did chemo nonstop the whole way until the very end. And so, it went into his lungs, the lymphatic system, and obviously spread. Had he gone to the doctor the first signs of trouble, and also had the colonoscopies test taken when he was age appropriate, the guy was 56 years old. He's super young. I mean, he looked like he was 90 when he finally passed away. And it just, if anybody at home, if you think that it's being a man that you're not going to the doctor and being and toughing it up, and I get it. You don't want to go to the doctor every time your back hurts. There's certain pains you just got to learn to suck up. But as far as, getting your prostate checked as a male, getting the colonoscopy, I know it's not a comfortable thing, but I mean, I'm telling you, when I turn 50, I'll be there like everybody else, being sedated and having something, a camera shoved up my rear. But I mean, it's much better than the alternative because it's so preventable of a cancer.
Yeah.
It's not like it's pancreatic cancer where it's like, well, that one just sneaks past everybody. There's not a lot we can do about preventative care on that one because we don't know until we know, and whereas the colon cancer, it's like, no, man, that one's preventable. It's extremely preventable. And it's still, I was talking to the doctor in the hospital. He goes, it's one of the most preventable cancers if we catch it early on. And it's still almost 2/3 of everybody that passes away from cancer dies from colon cancer. I was like, wow, it blew my mind. So it's one of the biggest killers and it's most preventable.
Yeah. I have heard that so often, that it is the kind of thing that if you just get the checks, not every time, but many, many times, you're going to be able to catch and prevent, and finding out kind of where you're at on that thing too, because I know there's something like if your family has a history of it, then you start checking it earlier than you would otherwise. But regardless, like you said, when you get around that 50-year-old more or less spot, then you kind of start getting those checks. So hello, I'll be there quicker than you.
Yeah, I mean, and his brother Robert, my other uncle, he gets it done. And he was just telling me, he goes, we talked to Miguel. He goes, you never had a no, I'm not going to go down and do that. Dude, you know what I mean? Like, and obviously, I mean, he paid the ultimate price. I mean, he would be 57 October 22nd, I think is his birthday. October 20th, I'm telling you, man, when I walked in the hospital and my dad, he says, hey, prepare yourself.
Yeah.
It's not going to be pretty. That still didn't prepare me. I mean, I remember at first I couldn't even walk to the side of the bed. I stood at the foot of the bed and I was just staring at him. And I'm just trying to fathom that the guy that I used to see that was just a big, powerful, I mean, he walked into a room, you're like, that's a pretty buff dude. You know what I mean? Like, to see him like that in the bed and just, it was baffling. I'm like, wow. So that expression that, the cancer ate him alive.
Yeah.
That's actually, like, I understand now why people say that. It eats you alive. Like, it just blew my mind. I mean, I'm like, that's not Miguel. I mean, I could see bones in his head. I mean, like, I even was telling Robert, like, I'm looking at him and I finally started kind of coming to a little bit and the shock wore off. I'm like, I didn't even think that even if he was just a skeleton, that's how thin he could possibly look. Yeah. It was, I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Well, the links are on Frank's social media, and like you just said, another good reason to get yourself checked if you're anywhere in that.
Be up on your health. You don't want to go. I mean, there's so many ways that we can't prevent from dying. If there's a few that we can, prolong, then take it upon yourself to fight back, man.
100% agree with that. Let's take a look at Mark Hunt and Alexei Oleinik. Like I said, this one, Frank, lasted just under a round. The big question going into this fight, everybody knew what Hunt was going to try to do, knock him out. Alexei Oleinik is the guy who has the freakish ability to submit opponents with the no-gi Ezekiel choke with some frequency. And he was so often so that he was asked about this in the fight week build-up, and he actually said what you and I said on the last episode. He said he thought Mark Hunt's neck was too big to get that Ezekiel choke on. So with that being said, the question became, would Oleinik's skills be able to serve him beyond that choke, specifically grappling and getting Hunt to the ground where, that's not known to be his strength. What do you see right off?
Well, I don't like how Oleinik keeps his left hand so low. And honestly, this is the first time I watched the fight.
Right.
So I don't know. Knowing that Mark has such a powerful right hand, throwing high jabs up towards his eye and keeping that arm up available would be one way to avoid that from happening. And but Mark's moving in the right direction. He's moving away from his lead leg. Mark can drop his left hand because he has a good chin, and he's more worried about guys going for his legs. So keeping that elbow down to be able to defend anything off his waist and legs is he knows what he's doing when it comes to fighting guys that want to get him to the ground.
And he's pretty explosive too, for as big as he is. So even at range like that, or at a distance out on the perimeter, he can shoot in. He can shoot in pretty quick.
No, very explosive. That's the athletic that he has, and that's why even 43, going on 44 years of age. I don't know if he hit 44 yet. He's still very dangerous because explosion doesn't go away. I mean, guys are able to be explosive well into the later in their athletic careers as they age.
Landed a pretty good right hand there on Oleinik, and Oleinik ate it, and it was a little expression from Mark Hunt, like,
fucked.
yeah. He right away was Hunt was working on that lead leg with low kicks, which probably expedited the need for Oleinik to finish the fight sooner than later.
I keep wanting to ask who wins, but I'll just wait till obviously this will be over here.
Oh, you actually don't know?
I swear to God, I have no clue who wins.
Okay. We'll get real-time reaction here.
Is it a crazy finish?
I'm not saying.
Oh.
No, I'm not going to say. I'll just let you watch here.
Well, at this point, I'm expecting a Mark Hunt knockout to come out pretty quick.
So Hunt's keeping a distance, but throwing those low kicks to the lead leg, which are proving very effective. Like right there, you even saw Oleinik pull it back. There's another single leg attempt from Oleinik that didn't go anywhere. Did you get to that point in your fight with Hunt? Was there a takedown attempt? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I tried it a couple times.
Yeah. Tough?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, with another, okay. Nope. About a minute 45 left in the fight. Uppercut from Oleinik there. Tags Hunt there with a left. Okay, now was that a shot so much as a slip?
I don't know. Once he started moving, I looked down at his legs.
Yeah.
I didn't see the shot.
Hunt went down briefly, popped right back up. But there was a blow that landed. Okay, now Oleinik's he's got Hunt's back. Hunt's trying to break the body lock there. Oleinik's climbing up on his back. Trying to flatten him out here.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All right, now he's got both hooks in. Oleinik does. He's got Hunt's back. They're up against the cage, though, which can make it a little difficult to work.
Wow. Hunt's got his feet flattened. Let's see if he can get his back to the mat.
He's cranking his neck right here. Less of a choke, more of a crank.
Yeah.
He's got Oleinik's got an arm in on the choke. Now his forearm is under the chin. There's the tap.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oleinik submits Hunt. And when you watch the replay, Frank, I mean, tell me what you think about the way that, because it's not ideal positioning. I mean,
no, he's not in a good position to choke.
His back is against the cage. He's kind of off to the side. Just watch when they show the replay, and you can tell. I mean, give me an idea when you watch this replay how much of this is strength. Because one thing Oleinik has, I mean, it's like going back to that Ezekiel choke. It's not just anybody that can do it. You've got to be a really big, strong guy to be able to pull this off. Let's show the replay here in a second. Here you go. All right, first they're showing those leg kicks. Oleinik said in his post-fight interview that those leg kicks were devastating to the point he wasn't sure if he could have taken more than about 3 more of them. That was a...
No, it's kind of on the back of the head. It kind of wobbled him a little
bit.
But that's just a shot that kills everybody.
Yeah. All right, so here's the body lock. Oleinik takes Hunt down. Here it is. Now look how he set it kind of off to the side.
Yeah, palm to palm. Yeah.
It was pretty quick, too.
Yeah. Also, too, I never noticed that about Hunt before, but he obviously, I've talked about this. This is why I don't attack the windpipe on guys. Some people, when they do their guillotine specifically, they like to drive in on the Adam's apple, right? And that's one thing that's not consistent from fighter to fighter. Me personally, I don't like my Adam's apple being touched. It makes me freak out, you know. But also, too, I freak out. I have a bad gag reflex. Yeah. I can barely brush my tongue. I look like a cat trying to give up a hairball, you know. Other people, I can push my thumb through their windpipe, and they don't give a shit, you know.
Yeah.
And so if you have a choke that's kind of, you know, that's why I don't like the windpipe choke, because some people it freaks out and they tap, and that's basically what happened to Mark. Yeah. He felt his windpipe being pushed in on because that was a wind choke, and obviously the few seconds that it was on, he wasn't out of breath.
Yeah.
He just didn't like the sensation of having someone drive in on his windpipe, and it caused a reflex for him to tap. Some people don't have that reflex. You know, some guys will say, "Screw you, I'm not tapping to that." That's why I attack the carotid arteries. And that's why a rear naked choke is a much more higher efficiency choke, because regardless if you freak out or not, if I sink it in deep, you go to sleep. So that basically that's what happened there, was that Mark panicked. You know, that choke, that windpipe choke, I mean, without a doubt, everybody could hold their breath for 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's why that, you know, palm to palm, sometimes you really got to hold it, you know, and it usually is better suited towards setting up a better choke. But when you lock in on that windpipe choke, if a guy doesn't initially tap, he usually can sit in there for a long time. Most people can hold their breath or go without oxygen a lot longer than I can hold a squeeze on their windpipe. So that's why it's not the best choke.
Yeah.
But if you happen to be fighting somebody like Oleinik, lucked out in the fact that Mark Hunt panicked when he felt that windpipe attacked, and so that's causes that reflexive tap.
Do you think also you maybe factor into that if you're Mark Hunt that he's got the wherewithal to realize in that position whether or not he's getting out of it?
Well, because Oleinik was kind of on the side and his back was kind of angled, you can see where Oleinik's elbow was. It would have been extremely difficult for Oleinik to – he would have had to slide a little bit more under Mark to get a better alignment on his back to get the rear naked choke. From there, really, except for that palm to palm, he would have had to that's the only choke he could have hit from that position. He would have had to belly down to go for head and arm, or slide Mark more on top of him and slide under him to go for a rear naked choke. So Hunt really wasn't in a bad position. I mean, as far as his back was taken, but as far as having your back taken, he was in a good angle. In fact, if I was Oleinik, I don't have Oleinik's squeeze power, obviously. I would have let the choke go and probably went for the mount at that point.
Oh, right, yeah.
You would have seen me with the hand closest to the mat would have shot up as a post. I would have used the top hand closest towards Mark's upper body as an anchor, and then I would have been fighting for the mount.
Yeah.
Or if you're there and you think you can pull Mark on top of you more so that the right arm can slide so you can get him more on your chest, because the fact that Oleinik was more on his shoulder, this choke would have been nearly impossible to get behind his head. So that's why he palm to palmed and squeezed. All he had was the radius, of the forearm driving in on the windpipe.
I also hit this real quick too before we go. I just want your thoughts on this, because this was actually the feature bout of the prelims was CB Dalloway taking on. Give a shot at pronouncing that name, Frank. What do you see there? Khalid. I'll give you the first name. Oh, they dropped it. Go ahead and pull up hit fight card on that drop-down menu on the bottom. There you go. CB Dalloway. There you go. Now they got it for you.
Mertzalaviv.
Perfect. Okay. So,
was it close?
I don't know. But check out this finish, because this fight goes. Let me see here. All right, Herb. This may be the latest stoppage I have ever seen Herb Dean account for. Okay, so Khalid here has Dalloway down on the cage. Dalloway had a rough night all the way around. I mean, this was not really looking good for him. This is late in the first round. We've got 16 seconds left. All right, watch this. And it actually, maybe this happened in the second. I think this happened in the second round. Okay, hang on. All right. Okay, so into the first round right there. So let's go to the second round right now. Yeah. Because Dalloway was breathing pretty hard and heavy going back to his stool after the first round. Yeah, I'm going to cue this up. So they're basically right back. Now there he's got a
anaconda.
Yeah, he's got an anaconda on Khalid, which Khalid kind of shakes out of. Okay, let's see where we're at. All right, so there's about 2 minutes left in this second round, and Khalid's got mount. Dalloway's taken some pretty significant ground and pound. All right, and this is pretty much how the fight's gonna. Now Khalid's got his back. Hang on, let me fast forward another tick or two here. $123. Okay, here we go. Okay. Now with 1 minute, 10 seconds left, tell me what you think here. Tell me if you see a spot where you would have stopped this fight. Almost front headlock there from Khalid. Okay. Dalloway's covering up. See how many unanswered shots you see here. 50 seconds left. Tell me what you're seeing.
I'm okay with it so far.
Okay. Uh, 30 seconds left.
About now. Yeah, I would stop it now.
Okay. Because Dalloway has now turned his back. He's completely covered up.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. He didn't stop it.
15 seconds left. Herb's talking to him. Herb's telling him he's got to fight back. But at this point, are you talking 20 unanswered shots? I mean, a lot of them are being blocked by Dalloway's hands, but not all of them.
Yeah, but Dalloway obviously doesn't want to be in the fight anymore. He's just not.
Now, that's not a stoppage. That was the bell.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he actually, I mean, Herb kind of made a waving off motion, and there was some confusion there as to whether or not he was waving off the fight. Now, Dalloway won't even get up to he can't even sit up on his stool.
Yeah, he's not hurt physically as far. I mean, he might be.
He's just
he's
exhausted.
Gassed.
Yeah,
he's gassed.
yeah. Sitting on his stool. Now, Herb's going to come over and ask him, you got to tell me you want to fight or I'm stopping the fight. I don't know what was said on Dalloway's part, if anything, but now Herb's waving it off. So he basically can't answer the bell after the second round, but there was a lot of debate about that one, whether or not that fight should have been stopped sooner.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like Dalloway was taking a lot of damage, so it wasn't like a vicious, oh, my God, he could have hurt his career. But very obviously through watching the fight, you see that he's tired, and he just basically is tapping without tapping.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he's just covering up and belly down. He's looking for the referee to stop the fight. And
So in Herb's defense, do you think that's one of those things? There's a little replay of it here now. Do you think that's one of those things where Herb can see as well that that's kind of the point that we're at in the fight, that, okay, he's not taking a lot of damage. I'm warning him he's got to fight back. He really doesn't appear like he wants to fight back. That's what sparks the conversation in between rounds, getting him to say whether or not he wants to continue to fight.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was an atrocious, oh, my God, he was wrong and just got, was getting his head bounced off the mat.
You think it looks worse than it is?
Oh, yeah.
Because of
the
Dalloway.
body positions Dalloway.
Yeah.
Because Dalloway had quit so badly.
Yeah.
And just is looking for the referee to stop it. But I mean, I guess I could see in Herb's defense, be like, if you want out of the fight that bad, just fucking tap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just tap the mat.
Yeah.
But Dalloway was probably looking for the referee to do it for him, and so that he could save face.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's probably going to about do. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because you got another minute? You got another 10? Are we good?
Not 10, but
not
I got
10.
6.
All right. Let's see. Let's get your position on this in 6 minutes or less, because we're a little bit behind the curve on this. We should have talked about it last week, and we ran out of time.
We got to talk to them about the studio, having it to where your mics are not so messed up.
Yeah, I know.
A half hour late.
Yeah, we were a little late getting started. But your thoughts, Frank, on the Colin Kaepernick Nike controversy? Colin Kaepernick got a Nike deal. They're putting, I guess, a Nike shoe or something. They're doing an ad campaign with him now.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's got everybody debating one way or another whether that's good or bad. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that Colin Kaepernick did something as far as invoke a conversation about people, that he wanted to bring attention to a certain topic. But as far as he himself, sacrificing everything, I don't know. I find it a little comical. You know what I mean?
Because is that the catchphrase in the the slogan?
Sacrifice everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. The guy's making $1 million now a year off his campaign plus, so I don't know how much sacrifice is really involved there. And I don't know, and you're obviously not the right person to ask this. I have to look it up. As far as I remember, he wasn't the starting quarterback anymore. I think his career kind of was on the downward slide to begin with when he started doing the whole taking anything. Mm-hmm. He had already basically, he wasn't starting anymore, and they were moving in the new guys. So,
I'll say this: and I get the literal interpretation, because a lot of people were like, "Well, here's Pat Tillman. He got killed in combat." Yeah,
and then in fact, it's funny. As a lot of people gave me shit about. They're like, "Well, his wife doesn't want him being used that way." I'm like, "Hold on a second. I'm not using him as a recruitment tool. I'm not saying that you should join the military because Pat Tillman did. I'm just saying here's a guy that I have a lot of respect for that had millions of dollars put ahead of him, and he decided because he had a belief in something to forego that, and he went ahead and put basically where he followed his belief. He went ahead and committed to it, and he passed away for it. Now, I know it was friendly fire, but that shouldn't diminish the image of what I'm not looking at the whole military aspect. I'm looking at the part of, here's a man that had millions of dollars put in front of him. He had a goal to go ahead and fight for the United States. He wanted to join the military. It wasn't a way out for him. It was actually a step down in livelihood for him.
Right.
That was his belief, and he followed it, and he passed away because of it. I mean, he joined the Rangers. It wasn't like that was a desk job. It's a very highly active, highly dangerous combat group to be put into. And so I think he's extremely respectful. I think that's somebody that if we want to admire a human being that really put everything on the line, I mean, that's everything.
Well, I agree with that part of it. But I also think, though, that the two examples are not mutually exclusive. Like, my line of demarcation is, are you doing something that is against your own financial best interest? And that comes in a whole lot of shapes and sizes. I mean, obviously, and I agree with everything you just said, Pat Tillman did it to the point that it got him killed. So if it gets you killed, you're always going to have that card over everybody else. But at the same time, I don't think we can go, anytime we're having a discussion about standing up for something, I can't look at you and go, well, you're still alive, so I don't want to hear from you until you're dead.
Well, and Kaepernick didn't do what he did knowing that he was going to take a financial hit. In fact, that's why he's suing the NFL for collusion against him. He thinks he's being unfairly treated and not being re-signed up. So your actions you took, you didn't think they would be able to do that, and if they were to do that, that would have been illegal. So the movements he made, he thought that he had a contract and he would get away with it. That it's like, well, I'm under contract. What are you going to do to me?
Well, let me push back in this aspect, and I'm not even necessarily disagreeing with that point. But what I will say is this: the NFL is, whether or not you're the starting quarterback, second string quarterback, whatever, if you can stick around just long enough, you've got a pension, you've got a, you're going to be to a degree that's better than the average working Joe out there set up, right? So if any kind of ruffling of feathers or going against the grain, that is not in your financial best interest. And I'll give you an example close to us. So like when Jessica Rose Clark is up here in studio criticizing the UFC for signing Greg Hardy, not in her financial best interest.
Yeah, but I think that most people can sit there and go, they could not give you a fight or not give you the fights you want now. Whereas most people sit there and go, well, Kaepernick taking a knee, do you think that they can cut him? Well, no, they can't. Can't cut a guy over not taking a knee. Like, so as far as,
yes,
what financial risk was he taking? I think at the time he took those risks and was taking a knee, he didn't think he was taking a risk.
I don't know. I think I disagree with that point, because I'll tell you where else I think it affects you is sponsorships. Now, he ultimately, I know this thing has gone 180 and he's gotten this Nike deal, but it's not like he took a knee and Nike went, let's get this guy his own shoe. We're loving this. I mean, it took years at this point of going through the ringer over it and actually getting turned into this kind of folk hero where maybe that comes back around. But I'm not. Look, there's different levels of heroism. I'm not saying that. Well, that sucks. They showed you're not you're a knockout. I'm like, hey, UFC, you're not helping us here. Focus on the subject. I just think that there are I don't like the idea of dismissing out of hand when someone. I always look at just the opposite way I would have of if you're doing something that financially benefits you, right? If I can see right through how something benefits you, like, okay, I immediately get why this person is taking this stance because they've got stock in the company or whatever it is, then maybe I'm discounting your opinion a little bit. I just don't I look at it and I go, okay, if I can see that what you're saying is not in your financial best interest, I'm going to give you a little bit of credit for that. I'm not saying I'm going to ultimately agree with you. I'm just saying that's like the free space on the bingo card. That's helping me right out of the starting blocks that you're not doing something that's in your financial best interest, because I'll give you this. I do know enough about football to know this. Colin Kaepernick was not Tom Brady.
No, not at all.
No, if Tom Brady does it.
I would respect Tom Brady stepping down if he makes a decision that pisses everybody off. I'd be like, wow, that's pretty impressive. You're giving up a lot.
Yes.
Kaepernick was not Tom Brady.
Well, yes, but then there's also a flip side way to look at that, which is, okay, but Tom Brady is probably more insulated. I mean, how far is Tom Brady going to have to go to get cut or to get passed over or to get disregarded in any way, even maybe demoted down to second string. Because, yeah, while maybe they can't cut him over taking a knee, and that's ultimately what's going to get sorted out in court, they can certainly make things inconvenient for him. I mean, there's got to be plenty of error, especially if you're one of these guys that teeters on the edge of, are you a starter, are you a backup,
he was
things
teetering.
like
It
that.
says here, he took over the starting position over the next 3 seasons. Kaepernick lost and won back his starting job. So, he was always kind of on the edge, you know what I mean? Like and then he opted out of his contract for the 49ers to become a free agent in the 2016 season, and nobody else wanted to touch him. So it's like, he made some decisions that I don't know.
I think you could. That's a tough call. I think there's solid arguments to be made on both sides in terms of what motivation could be versus not doing something. I always think that when it comes to your employee, believe me, I've heard this myself a time or two working for radio stations where I've taken positions against what would be, the company line, is that always the best thing to do is not to rock the boat. Now, one thing that comes up in relation to this podcast, Frank, is that people have talked online before about whenever we get into political opinions and things like that. And I've actually seen, have you ever heard the Michael Jordan quote about how he said he had avoided getting involved in politics because Republicans buy sneakers too? You ever heard that quote? Okay. People think that's something good that someone said that. Like that's insightful or that has some wisdom to it. I think that quote's kind of awful. And I'll tell you why. Because if I listened to this show because I liked you or I liked me or I liked our opinions or whatever, if I just found out that the real reason we were doing this was to sell people shoes, I think I'd be kind of bummed. I don't think I would have the thought of, you know what, those guys are so good at selling shoes, it gets me listening week in and week out. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here with you. Sorry, I'm reading about Kaepernick.
No, I just mean, are you with me on the opinion?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
does that, I can't ever recall liking, whether it be fighter, actor, politician, I can't ever recall really appreciating somebody once I figured out what awesome salesmen they were. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I never saw it in that light before when he said that. It made sense before. It seemed like an intelligent move. I think that's why people respected it.
Oh, yeah, I get why you're saying it.
I get where you're saying where it's not as courageous as maybe it's actually yeah.
I would feel kind of cheated if I found out that was the real motivation behind something. Because, look, with our listeners, for example, we value the time that they devote listening. We feel like what we need to give them.
I don't get there at 11:30.
I know, you got to go.
Angry text from Mrs. Meir.
Speaking of time, that's one listener who does not value the amount of time we put into it.
Like I said, I tried to explain to her that's why she pushed some things lower, that the mics were fucked up.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll
talk more about it.
Pick this up on our next episode.
It wasn't a topic to pick up with 6 minutes.
No, you're right. But just my parting thought is that's our true aim in this, is putting in that kind of thought, and we put that way above selling shoes or anything else to anybody. Probably to our financial peril. You know what, Frank? We're heroes.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Well, and the fact that I'm saying that I don't have that as much respect for Kaepernick as a lot of other people are, it's hurting our. So do I get a shoe?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Frank's shoe deal in the next episode of Phone Booth Fighting. Frank, close it out. Tell everybody how to follow us on social media.
Facebook and Instagram, you can follow us at Phone Booth Fighting, and Snapchat and Twitter, just Phone Booth Fight.
That's it. For Frank Meir, I'm Richard Hunter, and we'll see you right back here on the next episode of Phone Booth Fighting.